Well, g'day and welcome to Beyond at Home. We're going on a little journey today, so can't wait to have you along for the ride. Let's go. We got some young mangrove seedlings happening just over to my right with the pneumatophores just peaking. These aerial roots actually allow the tree to breathe in brackish waters. We're in a real treat today as we jump into this next episode of Beyond at Home, where we're looking at the problem of exclusivity. Today, we're tackling a problem that makes not just people who aren't Christians feel uncomfortable, but even people who are Christians feel uncomfortable. So today, the big journey that we're going on is hopefully to get to this end result of figuring out what we're meant to do with this discomfort. To do that, I want you to visualize with me. Okay, we're in a giant lecture hall. Our hats are off, we're neat and tidy. We're sitting in our chairs and we're looking forward to a panel with 3 people on it. On the panel is one person who is a Muslim imam, one person who is a Jewish rabbi, and another who is a Christian pastor, a Christian leader, a theologian. Now, this isn't just like some joke that I'm about to tell you or anything like that, just so you know, but more so, I want you to visualize sitting in this chair as this Christian leader, this Christian pastor stands up in front of a crowd, an audience of academics. This is what he says. The Christian theologian stands up. He says, if Christians are right about Jesus being God, the Muslims and Jews fail in a serious way to love God as God really is. But if Muslim and Jews are right that Jesus is not God, but rather a teacher or a prophet, then Christians fail in a serious way to love God as God really is. And in addressing a room of students, okay, the Christian said that all 3 religious leaders, all 3 of them agreed on this statement. So all 3 of these leaders agreed on this statement. They all acknowledged that they couldn't be right. And you see, as we sit in this lecture hall and we're visualizing this whole kind of situation unfolding, this conversation unfolding, I want to share with you the reflection of that Christian leader, of that Christian pastor and theologian. His name is Tim Keller. You see, this actually happened. These were his words to a crowd of academics, of students. See, Keller went on to observe that after he had stated this, that there were several students who were simply disturbed by this idea to insist that one faith has a grasp on truth more than others. Keller says that this was just seen as intolerant. And you see, this is this problem of exclusivity. This is the challenge of exclusivity, of one exclusive way or truth claim to connect with nirvana, to Allah, to God. And in the case of the Christian experience, to heaven, to salvation, it's presented as the separate challenge than that of Jesus' divinity. This is a claim that Jesus is saying he's claiming that he is God and that he's claiming that he's the only way to salvation. This is the problem of exclusivity. Now we've got to figure out how we sit with it. And to give you a heads up, the problem that we're looking at today offers some really big, it's a really big white-bellied seagull. Pat, have you got a shot of the white-bellied osprey? Today we're tackling some big problems. And with that, as you're tuning in and listening in, we'd love to encourage you to make sure you have your phone out and that you've jumped onto www.beyondchurch.com.au/problemofjesus. Because today, with any questions that pop up for you, with any of the problems that you really wrestle with, we want to make sure that you can submit them right there onto that tab on our website, because we want to talk about them in our weekly podcast, Beyond the Message. But let's jump back to this problem of exclusivity, because I think even if you're kind of sitting at home or wherever you're tuning in from today and you're thinking about, well, when I think about Christianity, like these are the things that kind of come to mind. Like if I was to ask you, when you think about Christianity, what comes to mind? Maybe for you think about a church, you think about a cross, or maybe for you think about a Christian person who's a really good person. In fact, it's almost odd how good they are. They want to live this really good life, but they're also really kind and they're also really generous and they're just good. Maybe for you, that's a really kind of nice reflection of what Christianity or a Christian looks like for you. But maybe at the same time, if you're someone who isn't a Christian and I ask you what Christianity looks like, maybe you think of Christians who are just intolerant, who are bigoted, who are hypocritical. Maybe some of these words come to mind for you. Maybe you just find them so resistible. Or maybe for you, even as someone that when we talk about Christianity, maybe for you as a follower of Jesus, maybe this is a real struggle for you, this idea that people see Christians as hypocritical, as resistible. Because you know that in your heart, you want to be someone who is good and liked. And particularly for followers of Jesus, I get it. You don't want to exclude anyone. And many Christians wrestle with this notion of exclusivity as we are exposed and as we learn and as we're encouraged to embrace beautiful cultures all across our world. And we can find ourselves asking, like, how could God say all these people are wrong and are going to an eternity without him just because they don't believe in religion or just because they have a different religion? And we as followers of Jesus, we should be defending the rights of others to actually be able to believe what they believe and help them work towards similar goals in the world. Followers of Jesus should be the standouts of stewarding and advocating for social justice and human rights, because that's what Jesus did. That's what Jesus was, and he loves all people. But it's this thing, right? Because religion gives hope. And you might know this as a Christian person and not as a Christian person. Religion gives hope, but religion also causes friction. We've seen this across the timeline of history, and nobody wants friction because friction means discomfort. It can mean exclusion. And one of the big bottom lines I want to wrestle together with you about this morning is this, that we can reject the idea of exclusivity, but being made uncomfortable by an idea doesn't make it false. It just means we don't like it. And if we were to pause for a moment and just reflect just on this statement, that Jesus never said, don't go about coexisting with people who just don't follow me. Like, that is just so the opposite of Jesus. Like, Jesus's big statement even entering into the world was that everybody matters to God, whether God matters to them or not. Jesus wrote himself in, and he came alongside of so many people. He crossed cultural barriers, religious barriers to point people back to himself as the hope of the universe. But Jesus isn't saying, no, don't coexist or not coexist with people because of having a different religion to yourself or completely opposing views. It's so far from the opposite. It shouldn't be our natural response as followers of Jesus to exclude, which is why I understand why this kind of concept of exclusivity is so bizarre. See, Christianity from the get-go is not an exclusive faith. When we look at the Old Testament, that first part of the Bible, yeah, God had his chosen people. It was Israel, it was the Jews. But when Jesus entered into history, he made access to him as wide and as far and as universal as possible. Christianity is not an exclusive faith. However, at this tension, or more so there's this tension that maybe you might have hit upon in your life, that Christianity is exclusive in how it points to the truth. And what's this truth? What's this kind of truth that we keep on talking about that's so exclusive? Well, I want you to think of the most dramatic cinematic moment in your life. Maybe for you, it's like in Avengers at the end of Infinity War. Spoiler alert. We should have put a spoiler alert in first. My bad. Maybe for you, it's in like the Titanic where like Kate Winslet becomes Kate Winslet goes and like there goes Leo, like he's away. It's climatic and he's just like, whoa, how did that happen? Maybe you have a key moment in a movie. Maybe you read a book before where there was this plot twist moment. Well, I want to invite you to enter into the room the night before Jesus went to die on the cross. And he's there with his 12 disciples, these people that have been journeying with him for the course of 3 years. And maybe you've seen this photo before of the Last Supper where it seems like all the disciples are just on one side of a table and they're all just looking this way. Like on this night, this is the night before Jesus goes to the cross and he's about to deliver this big statement, this big kind of bombshell of truth. It's a big plot twist. Jesus is about to tell his followers like, hey, this is the way to God. This is the way to eternity. This is the way to heaven. So here we are in this room with all the disciples and Jesus addresses them with this statement. So Jesus is there about to have this meal with his 12 disciples and he sits them down and he knows where he's going next, right? He knows what's going to happen next. Soon he's going to be on the cross. But he's sitting there with the disciples and he tells them where he's going. And this completely spins the disciples out because they're trying to make sense of this. And imagine someone trying to tell you that, you know, I'm going, you'll know where I'm going, but they've got no idea how to follow them. In fact, Thomas, one of the disciples, and you might know Thomas, even if you're not a church or Christian person, that phrase of doubting Thomas, like this is Thomas. Thomas was the one who doubted when that Jesus had come back to life, right? Thomas is there and just with his kind of just questioning, he turns to Jesus and he says, Lord, okay, we don't know We don't know, Lord. We don't know where you're going. We have no idea where you are going. So how can we know the way? And here comes the big truth bombshell moment. This is the cornerstone of the Christian faith. Because whilst various religions make exclusive claims about salvation, Christianity, on the other hand, asserts that there is, in fact, truth. And this truth was stated by Jesus himself in this moment in his response to Thomas and in front of the other followers. And it's this claim of Jesus that really is the cornerstone of the Christian faith. Here it is. Jesus told them, he said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, that no one can come to the Father except through me. Jesus said that he is the only way to heaven, the only way to peace and ultimate joy in life, and that no other kind of worldview can provide these things. This is an exclusive claim. Jesus is saying that Christianity has exclusive access to the truth, and that the only way to this truth is through him. It is only through Jesus. And now, before we kind of go like, wow, like big call, Jesus, like really big call. And also like, wow, like how arrogant, like that is a massive thing to be pointing to God, but then pointing to yourself and saying it's through me. But if we look at other kind of religions, there's actually, it's really hard to try and find another religious worldview that also doesn't have some type of exclusive claim. Islam is exclusivist. Buddhism is exclusivist. In fact, by trying to be inclusive, one actually becomes exclusive. Now, does that make them arrogant? Well, let's look at the opposite of exclusive religions, or more so, let's look at inclusivism. Because if you want to understand inclusivism, well, a really easy way of looking at this is to consider a scene from a movie that has Will Ferrell in it. And as soon as you hear this, you're like, Will Ferrell in a movie, it's going to be ridiculous. If you've ever seen Talladega Nights before, you know that there's a scene where Will Ferrell plays a character named Ricky Bobby, who's a race car driver. There's a car crash whilst he's driving. The car is not on fire. Nothing goes on, but Will Ferrell jumps out of the car thinking that the car is on fire, and he starts yelling out these things. He yells out, help me, Jesus. Help me, Jewish God. Help me, Allah. Help me, Tom Cruise. Help me, Oprah Winfrey. And this scene depicts perfectly what inclusivism looks like or sounds like. It's not limiting yourself to simply one God, but it's saying that there's many paths to God. Well, also it'd be really nice just to say like, your truth is your truth and my truth is mine. Like it's actually a logical impossibility. It's a logical impossibility. It's logically contradictory to believe that divergent paths lead to the same place. And again, even as we look at other religions, like Islam says that Jesus was not God. Christianity says Jesus was and is God. Buddhism and atheists say there is no God. New Age philosophy says we're all gods. They cannot all be true at the same time. And that is Jesus' entire premise here when he steps out to his disciples over dinner and says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. That if heaven and God exist, that there is one path, not 100 different paths. And it doesn't matter what anyone feels about it. Though various religions make exclusive claims about salvation, Christianity claims has a very specific way to a particular kind of salvation. And I guess the question that we have to kind of wrestle with when we even look at this question of like, well, who is Jesus? Like Jesus is giving us the direction, the path here, but who is Jesus? Like we go back to this question we've been wrestling with over the last couple of weeks, the problem of Jesus. Who is he? Because he's either a lunatic or liar for what he said. But if he is actually Lord, then we have to figure out what we want to do with that. Which is why this week, our For Monday, the challenge, the next step for you to think about that I'd love to invite you to think about is this. It's this question of what stands in the way of you following Jesus? What stands in the way of you following Jesus? Because I recognize that maybe for you, you've had a really poor experience of Christianity based off an experience with Christians that have left you to feel like Jesus is just this resistible, historical figure that was just there 2,000 years ago. And if that's the case, I'm sorry, and I understand with that poor experience why you'd push back. But I know at the same time that the Jesus I know wasn't meant to be resistible. And maybe for you, maybe it's that Christianity just seems to be this worldview where people just lean on an invisible God as a mere crutch to get through life. Maybe you have a list of problems that kind of stand in the way of you following Jesus. We'd love to invite you again. Jump onto the website, www.beyondchurch.com.au/problem of Jesus. Get your questions and problems on there. Write these things down this week. get them onto the website so we can talk about it in the podcast, but more so do it for yourself. What stands in the way of you following Jesus? But the next thing we need to do, after you have asked yourself this question, is to ask yourself, or more so make a decision, as to whether or not you can overcome it. You know what? We can put this in the hard basket and say, yep, this is a question I'll deal with for Monday, but next week I'll push it longer and further away into my future in 20 years' time, 50 years' time. The only thing is that Jesus is saying eternity is on the line here. And this is a seriously uncomfortable question, because it's seriously uncomfortable to follow Jesus when the standard is set at the cost of your life. And it's seriously uncomfortable to follow Jesus every day when you have to defend what you believe against a world that pushes back. And truthfully, there's not a lot that's too comfortable about Christianity, because ultimately it makes you completely reshape your moral compass, your values. It leads you to completely reshift your whole belief system when it comes to things like morality, destiny, purpose, who you are and where you're going. These are all big things to wrestle with in our life. It's not comfortable, but it can't be a question that we can continue to delay throughout our whole life. And I just know for me that when Jesus comes to pointing to himself as the direction and the way in life, that, yep, I can look at Christianity and know that there is actually a comfort. But even in that wrestle, I know that there's historical evidence. I know that there's things that point to Jesus through me looking at it through a scientific lens, through who he is as a person and what he has done. And because of that, I can have an assurance in that. Because of the people in my life, other followers of Jesus, who have pointed me to Jesus, that I know that there's actually a heavenly Father who cares so much about me that he doesn't want to just be a quick fix in my life or a mere crutch, but wants to be a solution to my life. He wants to offer me a peace and a clarity. This is what Jesus promises. This is how it's changed my life. And I hope it's something that you can consider when you look at this question and decide where you stand when it comes to this problem of Jesus. I'm going to look at some ospreys. But have a great rest of your day.